Hi, this is Stephen Gandolfi coming to you from the tasting room at Westport Whiskey and Wine with this week's Cheeky Pint. This week we're going to be talking about some beers from Five Rabbit Brewing in Chicago. Two things to say right off the bat. First off, though I took some Spanish 3 or 4 years in high school, these are kind of old Aztec Cuauhtemoc names, and I'm not going to get all of them correctly, and I'm going to reference some things about the history of Central American culture that I'll just mispronounce, and so I apologize for that right off the bat. Second, because this is Mezcal week here at Westport, I wanted to talk about these beers because they fit in historically, especially with their nomenclature, with the idea of Mezcal. So you see that these beers are called Five Rabbit from Chicago. Five Rabbit is a reference to this old legend in mythology, in Mesoamerican mythology, about you had this goddess of the maguey, of the agave field, and this god of pulque, which is this sort of bubbly pre-tequila, pre-mezcal fermented agave drink. And they copulated one night, and their offspring was 400 crazed, drunken rabbits. There's a saying, I believe, I couldn't do it in the original, but the highest form of intoxication is drunk as 400 rabbits. Among these 400 rabbits, some of them had a little bit more presence and more identity than the rest, and one of them was Five Rabbit. And Five Rabbit was the sort of overall animistic expression of overindulgence. And so that's where these guys take their name from, is Five Rabbit. Five Rabbit does typically traditional old world styles beers, but with flavoring and evocation of classic Latin foods, flavors, and also really good pairing agents for the cuisine of those countries as well. But we'll start over here with Gran Missionario. Gran Missionario is a series that they've been doing where they make essentially like a high gravity wheat ale, and then they flavor it with different things. Their initial one was a fig, and it's got great reviews from what I've seen online. I just never tried it before. Instead, what I have here is their most recent release, which is a muscat grape and raspberry. It is vinous. It is flavorful. It's a little tart, but I think it's just a great pairing agent. It's a great. It's gotten a little bit colder again, but it's a great sort of anticipating spring sort of beer. Comes in at 8.7% as well, so, you know, take a break from your high-gravity IPAs, maybe leave the stouts aside for a little bit, and try something with a little bit more kind of fruity character, a little bit more effervescence. Next up is another wheat-based ale. This is their Five Rabbit, Five Lizard. Five Lizard is one of those Five Rabbit was a character with a little bit more identity than the other 400s. There were these other fives. There was Five Grass, Five Lizard, blah, 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 blah. Five Lizard is one of those animistic entities. I don't know much about the mythology of Five Lizard. I just know that it's one of the names that you see bandied about in mythology. This is their take on a classic wit beer. So you've got that wheat-based ale. You're adding salt, and then you're adding coriander, and usually you would add orange peel. Here they're using lime, and then they're also adding passion fruit, and that for me is actually the dominant flavor. The lime, you get a little bit of that lime, bitter lime pith kind of character, but it's really balanced out by these sort of sweet tropical passion fruit notes, and that's the dominant flavor in this beer. Lower gravity on this one, 4.3. Much more just like a kind of, beer with pizza kind of beer. And in fact, with its acidity, great beer with pizza. Next, we're going to do one, the name of which I will butcher, Huitzi. Huitzi is interesting. You could make an argument this is a Belgian pale. Belgian gold is probably more accurate. It's brewed with chamomile, honey, and hibiscus. And what this to me is very redolent or very evocative of agua fresca. If you've ever been to like a big Latin family gathering, or even some Latin restaurants, they'll have agua fresca, which is essentially a solution where you've taken different fruits and dried flowers and whatnot, and soaked them, and then added a little bit of sugar and watered it down, and it's served as a drink at the meal. But that's, to me, I think what they're trying to evoke with this bright floral, very dry kind of ale. And we'll finish here with La Piña de mis ojos, the pineapple of my eye. A little higher gravity, 7%. Classic kettle sour. It doesn't have those funkier barrel notes. Very clean, bright. And I think this one also, to me, is evoking something from Latin culture, which is, and I'm definitely going to butcher this because I've only ever seen it on menus, but it's called tepache. Tepache is usually you see it in like street vendors, sometimes food trucks have them, but it's a fermented pineapple drink. And it's kind of cloudy, and it's got that prickly pineapple kind of acidity on the palate. But that's what they're doing here. So this is the lineup from Five Rabbits. I know I've talked about them here and there over the last couple of months, but these are some of the most interesting and cool beers that we've had come into the state in a while. When everything seems to be dominated by like milkshake IPAs and heavily adjuncted stouts, it's just really neat to see somebody doing innovative things with beer. So all of these guys, with the exception of Five Rabbit, Five Lizard, I think are $13.99. We're gonna have them on sale for $11.99. This guy's $12.99. We're gonna put it on sale for $10.99. But yeah, why don't you come on down, help us celebrate Mezcal, try some Mezcal. We're going to be doing some Mezcal kind of events next week. Take a look at that, and try some different beers. Steven, bye.